You know, the United States is on top. First off, understand, Korea has become a global superpower. And many people around the world see Korea this way. And, you know, they are seeing Korea in ways that very often Koreans don't necessarily see themselves. But what's important is the United States, we became rich, we became really wealthy because we went out around the world and we made things happen for us. We, in large part, took things from other people in our benefit throughout the later part of the 19th century and the 20th century. But Korea didn't do that. You know, you did this on your own. You didn't go conquer other nations, right? You did this on your own. You did it through hard work and you did it through education. And this is really worth noting for us as professors, and for me as someone who studies the political economy and development of the global world. So there's something in this.
And this might be that the hidden things underneath the surface that we can't see. But the competition, the fierce competition that exists in the same space, the space of education, and yet underneath it is a fire. That's education, that's mass education.
This mass education, and there's a lot of focus on memorization here in Korea. You know, because especially when you think about the CSAT exam, the Sunin exam, what you're trying to do is figure out who's going to get to go to the top universities, the sky universities. And the only fair way to do that is to have a score. And a single score is going to make that happen. But then what that means is, and so they're going to memorize and focus on the facts, but that's not thinking.
You know, as another part of the comparison, we were talking about this with our Penn State students and Konkuk students over the past couple weeks, and we talked about cheating. The American students were saying, we don't care if our friends cheat. Korean students were like, oh my God, how would you help someone to be better than you? And our students were like, whatever, I'm still gonna get my grade. Okay, it was fascinating.
But the Korean students were no. So a question for the panel here. How was it to feel, did you feel like you had to study hard? Like if you didn't study hard, your lives would be just ruined?
하기 싫은데 했어요. 제가 나오는 고등학교가 그보다 더 심했거든요.
잠깐 고등학교, 대학교를 좀 말씀해 주시겠습니까?
고등학교는 한국과학영재학교라고. I'm from Korea Science Academy. It was a gifted high school. 그리고 대학교는 카이스트라는 곳을 나왔고요. It's a Korean MIT.
좀 쉽지 않은 곳인데.
근데 스카이캐슬보다 더 심한 경쟁 환경이 있다 보니까 공부를 안 하고 싶어도 네, 옆에 있는 애들 보면은 괜히 주눅 들어서 더 열심히 하게 되고 막 그런 게 있었어요. 부모님은 오히려 워워 하셨죠. 얘가 너무 잠도 안 자고 공부를 하니까. 중학교 2학년 때 이후로는 공부하라는 말씀을 한 번도 하신 적이 없어요.
그럼 스스로 주변 환경 때문에 영향을 좀 받은 거예요?
네, 그쵸. 그때부터.
Well, let's say a couple things, you know. Here's an image of, you know, we see this, right? Here, we see it with our Korean students. Many of the Korean students who we encounter at at Penn State University, they come to the U.S. because they want to escape the high levels of competitiveness here. And so they say, yeah, I just go to the U.S., it's a lot easier. And so many say, God, it's actually really easy to do well in the U.S. compared to in Korea. There's that viral video that we did in my class many years ago of my students. Many of you have probably seen it, where I compared an American woman and a Korean woman. So how about school? How do you do? Are you smart?
I hope so. I don't know.
What's your GPA?
I think I'm okay. It's over 3.0.
What's your GPA?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
No, go ahead. Korean woman who I met with a couple times here in Korea that had been studying was graduating Penn State in 2 years, and she had two majors, a science major and a psychology major.
와.
And she had a 3.8 GPA.
와.
She said, "Oh, I'm not very smart."
야, 대단하다.
Whereas the American woman had a 3.2 GPA, a very relatively low GPA, and she said, "Oh yeah, I'm really smart."
Korean students tend to lead with humility and downplay their success and really just quietly succeed in their studies.
You know, I mentioned the Sky Universities here, and I'm thinking about everybody talks about the Sky Universities. You know, for us, it's the equivalent of the Ivy League universities, and Koreans are obsessed with them, the top schools, and we laugh at that because most Americans are not obsessed with the Ivy League schools. You know, you might not really understand this.
아예 안 됩니다.
They don't want to go to the Ivy League. Many of our students, most of our students, they come to our university because we have a really big football program.
와.
와,
The stadium. This is exciting. And if you go to one of these games, you feel this energy and the passion, and you're like, I want to go there. That's cool. But our university, it's a very good university in the United States, but it is not Ivy League. And I would say, I don't know what percentage of our students, if they had a chance to go to Penn State or to go to Harvard or Yale or Princeton, they absolutely would go to Penn State because they want that other experience. And here, you know, it's hard. You know, it's really difficult for this current generation of young people in Korea. It's different. You're highly educated, you're overly educated. You know, 70% of this age group of 25 to 35, you have college degrees, but you don't. If you work hard and you do what you need to do, and then we promise success to you. But there aren't that many great jobs. You all can't have the top jobs. What we are experiencing among Korean youth is this kind of disillusionment and this angst and anxiety that comes from the fact of like they feel like they're not going to be able to go to that next level. And we come from a multicultural nation, that the United States was built on people coming together from so many different areas of the world. And it makes us a very fascinating country. So we have all of these places in the United States with these separate cultural groups. You have your Dominican American area, you have your Puerto Rican American area, you have your Salvadoran, you have your Chinese American, your Korean American, your African, your Ghanaian, your Nigerian American, everything. And this is part of what the United States is, okay? And it works there because we're a nation of immigrants. So Korea, you know, you have low birth rates. You're going to experience more and more foreigners coming into Korea.
아, 그렇지.
People who look like us, people who do not have ancestry in Korea, and you're going to have to make decisions about how you're going to deal with this and what is going to be the response in the nation of Korea. What is Korea going to become when you have all of these other people coming into this country who do not have Korean ancestry? And so we have a couple thoughts about that we would like to share just to help to spark a conversation about this diversity culture here in Korea. You're at the very beginning stages of this. And if the anticipation, the idea is that more and more people without Korean ancestry are going to come here. And what is going to happen to Korea? Now, in the United States, the multiculturalism works. because we're a big nation. We're a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of people. We're a nation of contradiction. Because we had slavery, we have genocide of indigenous people.
And we've been part of a generation that, starting in the 1960s with the uprisings of Black Americans and civil rights, like that, we were born into that. And I think one of the key things that the Black community has brought to the attention of the United States and of course the world is inequality. So we were born into a different America than is today, even though always a nation of immigrants and diversity. So yeah, we have all these people, but we don't have the sense of oneness. We have a lot of fear of each other. When I was a little one in the hospital, I was in the hospital in a city in the United States that's in Newark, New Jersey, which at the time, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And that was a very fearful time among white people and Black people in the United States. Because of the history in the United States that has been led by the Black community, the African American community, I would say, in terms of civil rights, and then for the Black community, and then many other groups following the lead of Black Americans, which I think is profound.
Profound and important.
And so, if you're in different places in the United States, you'll see different Americas. Because we have, certain immigrants to the United States have what we call assimilated, right? They've become American, meaning they've lost their language, they've lost their traditions, and they've left those things behind and they've become something else.
We have people of Korean ancestry living in the United States who, when you talk to them, they are American. They are as American as Lori and I are in every way. They just look Korean, but they are American. And so, one are Koreans, are you ready for that? Are you ready to begin to take that step?
And so as we see the failures and the successes in the United States, Korea as a nation is very interesting to us because you're in a place, Korea has a very deep, rich, complicated history, but it's a new place for Korea. And this question of diversity and assimilation, to what degree do people have to speak Korean if they come here? To what degree do they have to share your values?
Because you're at the very beginning stages of this. So there's a lot of struggle here about what to do and how to move forward. Do you demand assimilation? Do you really want people who look like us to become Korean? And if they do, will you accept them as Korean? We understand nunchi, we adopt Korean customs. At what point will you stop asking people like us who live here if we like kimchi? At what point would you see people like us as actually Korean? See in the United States, you can go. There's nothing wrong with that. But it works in the United States, but maybe it's going to work very differently here because you are a very small, homogenous country. And I think there's a struggle, and there's a struggle that Korea is going to need to address. If you don't, especially young people, if they don't accept multiculturalism, they're often seen as racist and ethnocentric, and so how difficult that might be for young people.
I really, truly, in my heart, hope that the young generation can take the best of Korea that they have inherited and make it into the Korea that they want to see and move the culture to keep it alive, to keep it thriving, and to keep the unique charisma. I think that it's just a really, really valuable way.
Is to talk about what keeps bringing us back to Korea. And as we said, this is a really fascinating culture, a fascinating nation. The world's coming. It's coming even more.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's your own fault. Yeah. And in the end, Korea will just keep going forward. Not because it's easy, but it's almost because it matters, you know, it matters to you, and it really matters to the world because you have a lot to teach, you have a lot to offer. So just keep going, okay?